"I'm almost free," she whispered in the dark. She thought I was asleep. But I lay there, still as stone, listening to the woman I built my life with plan a future without me. That night, I didn't move. I didn't speak, because silence can cut deeper than any word. "Hello there, my friend. My name's Thomas, and tonight, you're sitting with me in a story I never thought I'd have to tell. I'm not a rich man or a famous man, just an old man who once believed love meant forever. For 25 years, I gave everything I had to someone I trusted more than anyone else in this world. But sometimes, trust doesn't break loudly. It slips away quietly when you're not looking. Before I continue, I want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments, has anyone ever dismissed you because of your age, or made you feel like your love, your loyalty, or your years didn't matter anymore? If you've ever felt overlooked, pushed aside, or taken for granted, then you'll understand why this story still sits heavy on my chest. So settle in, stay with me until the end, and let's walk through this together. For most of those 25 years, if you'd asked anyone who knew us, they would have said we were the kind of couple people admired. My wife and I built a life that looked solid from the outside. Sunday barbecues in the backyard, laughter echoing through the kitchen. The neighbors would wave and say, "There go the Thompsons, still going strong." We had 2 kids who grew up believing their parents were unshakable. Our daughter inherited her mother's smile and my stubbornness. Our son had a way of making every room brighter just by walking in. They both believed we were the kind of family that nothing could touch. My in-laws saw me as the steady man their daughter could always lean on, and for years, I wore that image like a badge of honor. But what no one saw were the quiet shifts beneath it all. The way her eyes stopped meeting mine at the dinner table. The way family conversations turned into polite small talk instead of real laughter. Even the neighbors who loved to talk didn't catch it. That's the thing about cracks. They don't scream, they whisper. On the outside, we were perfect. Inside, I was slowly watching the foundation crumble, and I didn't even know just how deep the damage ran. When I look at that house, I don't just see bricks and wood. I see my entire life poured into it, piece by piece. When we were young and broke, I worked double shifts just to afford the down payment. She painted the walls herself, and I laid the floors with hands that still carried the smell of machine oil from the factory. That house wasn't bought. It was built with sweat, patience, and a kind of love that only 2 people who believe in forever can create. I still remember the winter. The roof leaked. We couldn't afford a repairman, so I climbed up there in the freezing wind, patching it with my bare hands while she made soup to keep me warm. I used to think those nights meant something. I used to think we were building a life that no storm could touch. Every tree in the yard was planted with care. Our kids carved their names into the old oak by the porch. For me, that house was more than a home. It was proof of everything I gave, everything we shared. And now, knowing she whispered about walking away from me, from all of it, that's what burns the deepest. You don't just lose a person when they betray you. You lose every memory that once made your life feel solid. The first cut was small, almost invisible. It happened on a Sunday afternoon, the kind where the house smelled like baked bread and the radio hummed soft old songs in the kitchen. She was on the phone and I walked in just as she lowered her voice. I pretended not to hear, but one sentence slid through the air like a blade. "I'm tired of taking care of him. He's not the man he used to be." I froze, still holding the glass of water in my hand. She didn't say it with anger. She said it like she meant it. Like I was just a burden wearing her down. She turned, saw me, and gave me that practiced little smile. The one that used to mean love. I nodded like nothing happened. Took a slow sip, let it burn in silence. But the words carved themselves into the back of my mind and stayed there. I didn't ask her what she meant. I didn't want to hear it out loud. Instead, I let that moment settle deep inside me, quiet but sharp. Some betrayals don't shout. They whisper, then linger, waiting to grow teeth. After that Sunday, the small stings started showing up everywhere, like cracks creeping through old wood. At dinner, she used to ask about my day. Now she scrolled through her phone like my voice didn't exist. One night I tried to tell a story about something our son did years ago, something that used to make her laugh until her cheeks turned red. She sighed, rolled her eyes, and said, "God, You talk too much about the past." Everyone at the table went quiet. The air felt heavier than the food on our plates. I smiled like it didn't touch me, but it did. Then came the house. The same house I bled and built for us. She started making comments about how a smaller place would suit her better. She talked about selling the home like it was just an address, not a life. When I mentioned the kids' memories, the oak tree, the nights fixing the roof together, she brushed it off. "Don't get sentimental, Thomas, it's just a house." But the one that cut the deepest was the bank card. Ours. I logged in one evening and noticed transfers I didn't recognize. She wasn't just pushing me away emotionally. She was slowly peeling away everything that tied us together. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I let her push, let her believe I was still that quiet man who wouldn't fight back. But inside me, something started to shift. Quiet doesn't mean weak. Silence doesn't mean blind. And every boundary she crossed became a thread I started pulling. Slowly, carefully, waiting for the day everything she built on lies would come undone. It started with whispers. The kind you're not supposed to hear, but somehow always do. Late at night, when the house was supposed to be wrapped in silence, I'd hear her voice drifting down the hallway. Soft, careful, not the way you speak to your husband. The words were too low to catch most of the time, but the laughter, that light, floating laugh I hadn't heard in years, told me enough. Then things started going missing. Not the kind you can see lying on a table. Little pieces of my life began to disappear on paper. A few $1,000s moved from the joint account. A letter from the lawyer's office tucked behind a stack of old bills. She thought I wouldn't find it, but I did. She'd filed for something. I couldn't see all the details, but it had to do with the house. The house. My hands shook holding that envelope. She started coming home later. No explanations. No shame. She'd change in the bathroom with the door locked now, even though she used to hum while getting dressed right in front of me. She began avoiding my eyes like the truth might spill out if she looked too long. That's when the feeling settled in my gut. Not panic, not denial, just cold, steady suspicion. It was like watching a storm roll in from a distance. Quiet at first, but impossible to ignore. She thought I was still that same man who trusted her without question. She had no idea I was already watching, already listening, already waiting for the wind to turn. Betrayal doesn't come crashing down all at once. It seeps through the cracks, little by little, until the ground beneath your feet starts to feel unfamiliar. I didn't have proof yet. But proof has a way of finding those who stop pretending everything's fine. The proof didn't scream when I found it. It sat quietly in a drawer that she thought I'd never open. That night, the house was still. The kind of stillness that presses against your skin. I walked into the study, the room we used to share when we paid bills side by side, and something told me to check the bottom drawer of the old wooden desk. It was locked, but I'd built that desk myself. I knew its secrets better than she ever would. Under a stack of old receipts, there it was, a crisp manila folder. Inside, the truth I'd been pretending not to see. A signed agreement with a real estate agent. My name scratched off where it should have been. Her signature where mine used to go. She was preparing to sell the house, not our house, my house. The one I built nail by nail, and tucked beside that contract was something worse. A letter. Not to me, to him. The man on the other end of those late-night whispers. It wasn't filled with passion. It was filled with logistics, plans, dates. "Just a few more months," she wrote, "and I'll finally be free." My hands didn't shake, my heart didn't race. Instead, everything inside me went quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't break, it sharpens. I folded the letter carefully, slid it back exactly where it was and closed the drawer. I didn't say a word. Not that night. Not the next. I moved through the house like a ghost who'd already read the ending of his own story. She still kissed my cheek in the morning, the way someone kisses a man they think is blind. She didn't know I'd seen everything. She didn't know I was done being blind. Some truths don't need to be shouted. Some are better held close, like a blade waiting in the dark for the right moment to be drawn. I sat alone in that dark study for a long time after closing the drawer, staring at the walls I'd built with these hands. The proof was there. Real. Cold. Unforgiving. The woman I loved wasn't just drifting away. She was already gone. And yet, I said nothing. Not a word. I carried the weight of it like a stone in my chest and walked back to bed beside the same woman who had signed me away without a tremor in her hand. If you'd been in my place, what would you have done? Would you have stormed into the living room that night, waving the letter and demanding answers? Or would you have swallowed the truth, the way I did, letting silence wrap around you like armor? Tell me in the comments. I want to hear it from you. Not as strangers, but as people who felt the sting of betrayal in their own way. Some people choose war the moment they're hurt. I chose quiet, not because I was weak, but because a quiet man can plan what a loud man can't. It happened at the dinner table. Our children were home that night, sitting across from us with the same bright smiles they'd had since they were little. The air smelled like roasted chicken and rosemary, but there was a tension under it. A silence that didn't belong to any family gathering I'd known before. She'd been pushing for weeks, testing how far she could go without me pushing back. But that night, she stopped testing. She made her move. She cleared her throat like someone about to give a speech. "Thomas," she said softly, "I've been thinking, this house is too much for us now. It's time to let it go." She smiled at the kids like she was talking about a vacation, not the home they grew up in. "I've already spoken to someone. It'll be a fresh start for everyone." Our daughter frowned. "What do you mean already spoke to someone?" But she didn't answer her. She looked at me. Just me. Her eyes weren't asking. They were telling. She thought she had me cornered. In front of the kids, in front of the life I'd built. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I set my fork down slowly, wiped my hands, and looked at her as if we were the only two people in the room. She expected a fight. What she got was silence, real, heavy silence. I gave her nothing to push against. That silence made her nervous. Her voice wavered when she spoke again. A little too quick now. "It's for the best, Thomas. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." But what she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I already had the paperwork in place. The house wasn't hers to sell. It hadn't been for weeks. I had moved quietly while she whispered in the dark. She thought this was her moment to corner me. But she was already standing in a corner of her own making, and she didn't even know it yet. She thought my silence meant surrender. That night at the table, when the kids had gone to their rooms and it was just the two of us, she leaned back in her chair with the kind of confidence that only someone convinced they've already won can wear. She poured herself a glass of wine, took a slow sip, and said, "I know you don't want to fight, Thomas, but it's time to accept reality. It's over." I didn't flinch. I didn't beg. I reached into the drawer by the sideboard where I keep the old checkbook, the place she never bothers to look, and slid a single folded paper onto the table. Nothing more. No speeches, no explanations, just that quiet sound of paper brushing wood. Her smile faltered just a little. "What's that?" she asked, her voice thinner now. I shrugged lightly, almost like it didn't matter. "Just something I came across." She reached for it, but I stopped her hand midair with a calm look. "Not yet," I said softly. It wasn't a threat. It was a line drawn in silence. She leaned back, suddenly less sure. She had no idea what was inside. She only knew I'd found something. And in that moment, the power shifted. She had spent months building her escape in the dark. But darkness doesn't like light, even if it's just a crack. "Thomas, what are you doing?" she whispered, no longer steady. I smiled. Not the smile she knew. A quiet one. Measured. "I'm just making sure you understand. I'm not as blind as you think." I left the paper there and walked away, letting her sit in that chair with her heartbeat pounding in her ears. She didn't know if it was a letter, a deed, or proof of every lie she'd told. That was the point. A little fear now would make the truth hit twice as hard later. It happened 3 nights later. She walked into the living room with that same smile. The one she wore when she thought she'd already won. She had her bags half packed, her keys on the counter, and a confidence in her step that made the air feel thick. She thought she was walking out free. What she didn't realize was that she'd been walking straight into a wall I'd quietly built behind her. I was sitting in my chair by the fireplace, the same chair I've sat in for years, holding a plain brown envelope in my hand. I didn't get up. I didn't raise my voice. I simply said her name. When she turned, I placed the envelope on the table between us. "You've been busy," I said quietly. She laughed, light and sharp. Thomas, please, don't make this harder than it needs to be. We both know this is over. I leaned back, folded my hands, and let her keep talking. Every word she spoke was another brick in the case she didn't even know I had already built. Then, when her voice began to tremble under the weight of her own arrogance, I opened the envelope and laid everything out. The updated deed, the legal transfer, the trust papers, every signature, every document filed quietly weeks ago. The house, the accounts, everything she had planned to take, already secured in my name alone. And then came the letter, the one she thought was hidden away in that locked drawer. I didn't even have to say a word. Watching her face drain of color was enough. She reached for the papers like a drowning woman reaching for air. Her hands shook. "What is this?" she whispered. "Reality," I answered softly, "the kind you didn't plan for." And then I played it. The recording. Her voice, whispering in the dark. "I'm almost free, just a few more months." Every word echoed back into the room like a confession she didn't mean for anyone to hear. For a long moment, she didn't say anything. She just stood there, realizing every lie she told had been sitting in my hands the whole time. Her greed had written its own ending. I just signed it. "You can leave," I told her, "but you're leaving with nothing you didn't earn." That was the twist she never saw coming, because she underestimated the quiet man who'd spent 25 years building everything she tried to take. The room went so quiet, I could hear the clock on the wall ticking like a hammer on stone. She stood there with the papers in her hands, her fingers trembling as if holding the weight of her own betrayal. Her face, once so sure and smug, had gone pale. All that confidence she wore like armor just minutes ago was gone. What replaced it was the hollow look of someone who finally realizes the game is over, and they've lost. She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. No excuses, no clever lines, just the sound of her breathing uneven, like someone who's just been punched by the truth. The house, the one she tried to sell behind my back, was legally out of her reach. The money she thought she could drain was already locked away. And the recording of her own words was echoing in her head, louder than anything I could have said. I didn't gloat. I didn't raise my voice. I just stood, picked up the envelope, and placed it back where it belonged. "This house," I said quietly, "was built with hands that worked, not with lies, and everything you tried to steal was never yours to take." She tried to look at me, but she couldn't. She stared at the floor instead, as if it might open up and swallow her. For years, I'd given her everything. But that night, I gave her nothing, not even the fight she came for. Our daughter came down the hallway, saw her mother frozen and me standing by the fireplace. "Dad?" she whispered. I nodded, calm as the wind before dawn. There were no screams, no chaos, just the kind of silence that settles when truth finally takes its rightful place. She left with a small bag and nothing else. No house, no savings, no control. And as the front door clicked shut behind her, it wasn't anger I felt. It was a quiet kind of justice. She had planned to burn down my world, but instead, she walked out of the one I'd built with her empty hands. Betrayal ended where it began, in silence. You spend a lifetime believing loyalty protects you, that if you give your best to someone, they'll hold it the way you held theirs. But loyalty means nothing to the wrong heart. The truth is, people don't always leave when they walk out the door. Some leave long before that. They just wait for the right moment to cash in on your silence. I used to think love was about holding on. Now I know real strength is knowing when not to beg someone to stay. Silence isn't weakness. Sometimes silence is the loudest way to say, I see you, I just won't let you destroy me. Respect, trust, and loyalty. They're not things you demand, they're things you give. And if they're thrown away, you don't chase. You stand, because your worth isn't measured by how hard you beg someone to love you. It's measured by how steady you remain when they don't. If you've stayed with me this far, thank you. It isn't easy to talk about pain like this, but I've learned that silence only wins when we let it. Sharing this story isn't just about what she did. It's about reminding myself, and maybe reminding someone out there, that broken trust doesn't mean a broken life. Sometimes it's the beginning of standing taller. I want to hear from you. If you found a truth like the one I found that night, would you confront it with noise or with silence? Tell me in the comments. Your voice matters here. This isn't just my story. It's a place where stories like ours are heard. If this touched you, don't forget to subscribe, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and check out more stories on the channel. Each one carries a piece of what it means to love, lose, and rise again. Thank you for sitting with me tonight. And wherever you are, remember, stay strong, stay wise, stay blessed.